I first started calisthenics, I was able to do around 10 clean push-ups in a row. Now, I'm able to do a full planche, multiple handstand push-ups. I'm able to almost do a one-arm handstand. I can do a lot more stuff than I ever thought I would be able to do. And it's all thanks to practicing calisthenics. A lot of people think that calisthenics is useful for strength and muscle and basically nothing else, right? They think that it's pretty much like weightlifting, where the main goal is to build one of those two things. And I'm just going to come out and say that no, that's not the only thing you can do with calisthenics, right? That's not the only benefit you get. And I'm going to be pretty much talking about the benefits I've felt and seen that aren't those, because I know everyone already talks about them and you probably want to hear something else. So this is what I've noticed from 4 years of calisthenics that you might not have heard before. So around 4 years ago, before I started really training, my discipline was absolute shit, right? I spent most of my days on the couch or at school just waiting to go home so I could go on the couch and watch TV, watch YouTube, do all this stuff. I just wanted to consume without actually putting anything out into the world, right? That was my plan, that was my goal, and that's how I lived my life throughout basically the whole pandemic. Now, you could already tell that was never gonna work, right? While it was fun in the moment, I also basically came to realize that I wanted something new, I wanted something else, and this lifestyle of doing absolutely nothing, I didn't like it. Like, it was fun, but I also hated what I was doing every day. I hated waking up, having no energy or excitement to do anything during the day besides watch a screen that was 4 inches from my face, right? I wanted something else, and eventually, after I discovered calisthenics, that became the first thing where I actually had to use some discipline. I had to use some of that energy I'd been wasting before on screens into something actually productive. And one of the things that calisthenics taught me from this is that, unlike in YouTube videos or in Netflix shows, results take time, right? You're not going to see very much progress if you start one thing for a few days or a few weeks, stop because you don't see any progress, and then start again because you're motivated, right? You're not going to see progress if you stop and start all the time. Progress really takes effort in the beginning and momentum to carry forward, right? So one of the things I noticed pretty much immediately after I started was that a lot of the effort I was putting in, I didn't see yet, right? I knew it would eventually come because as long as I didn't give up, I had to see progress eventually. But in the beginning, it was kind of hard because I was putting in all this effort. I was putting on all these, hours of work and stuff. And I wasn't seeing my work translate into strength or muscle or, mental benefits, right? And so it was kind of an adjustment period that took maybe a month before I saw any sort of progress. And so that was one of the first lessons I learned, that more permanent results take longer to form themselves, because if something takes very little time to form or get, then it probably takes just as short of a time to, take away. And since calisthenics results are more long-term, then they also take longer to basically show up and appear. Just like any other benefit that takes a while, right? It's something, usually in these types of things, the longer something takes to get, the longer it takes to leave. So muscle, you get a lot slower than strength, but because of that, you also lose it a lot slower if you stop training for whatever reason. Another big thing I noticed from calisthenics is that these big goals, these, healthy fitness, whatever, like healthy goals, they feel a lot better than screens do, right? And it took me a while. It took me a while to see this because it was this adjustment period where I wasn't really sure if I was doing anything right. I didn't know what I was doing really. But once I started seeing progress, I understood that progress in this feels so much better than progress in, a virtual video game or seeing a movie or whatever, right? And so basically progressing in real life feels a lot better than progressing virtually. And I'm sure it doesn't take a genius to figure out, but that was one of the main surprising points for me because I thought this would just be a thing on the side and my main, fun was in video games. But after a month or two, this completely took video games out of the equation. Like, I was pretty addicted to video games before I started calisthenics, and as soon as I started making progress, this became so fun that video games was boring in comparison, which I had not felt basically ever. And I don't think I've touched a video game in maybe 2 years or so, which just shows how fun this can get once you basically have this adjustment period and you basically get used to it. It becomes a habit, it becomes lifestyle, right? So calisthenics also had a big effect on my, mental health, right? I'm sure you can guess that when I didn't do anything with my life, my mental health wasn't the best, right? Every or almost every thought I had was negative, meaning every time I wanted a sweet, it was, if I don't get this, I'll be so mad and sad and whatever. I'm sure I didn't treat my family very well, right? I'm sure I complained at every chore I received and every, I didn't try very hard at anything, right? Because nothing felt as fun or as, stimulating as video games did. And so when I started calisthenics, basically immediately actually, I felt a difference in my thinking, right? Instead of thinking everything as a negative, I started having a more positive outlook in life. And this started with, schoolwork, and it basically went into every aspect of my life. And I think one of the biggest reasons I started actual self-improvement, like, meditation, reading, I don't know, a lot of other good habits, YouTube, is because I wasn't really scared to fail that as much anymore, right? It still takes practice to fail, and I'm still working on it. But a big thing that I learned or realized or reminded myself is that failing's not the end of the world, right? Because I've failed thousands of times in calisthenics, right? I've been injured at least 10 times. Don't get injured, it's not fun. But, after you fail so much, it just becomes used to it, becomes life, and you can't learn without failing. So that's, I think, one of the best things I've gotten used to in calisthenics is just failing happens, right? If you don't fail, you don't learn, and you don't make any progress. So don't be afraid of failing, and don't be afraid to take on a challenge, right? Calisthenics is hard, I'm not gonna lie. Planche is definitely difficult. Handstand push-ups, not easy. The balance on those things takes forever. But once you do get it, it feels amazing, right? There's not many other feelings I've ever felt like achieving a skill you've been working on for so long, and that has taken so much of your time, so much of your energy, and a lot of your mental stamina. I'm not gonna lie, it takes a while, but it's well worth it. Another thing I want to say is because it doesn't actually take any, money or equipment, you really have no excuse not to start, right? I started with just my floor, just doing push-ups whenever I could or wanted to, basically every day. And, I got equipment later, but that was after multiple months of training consistently. That was after achieving the tuck planche already, right? I got from 10 push-ups to the tuck planche without any equipment, without any money spent. And, it was a great decision to get equipment, but you really don't need it at all in almost any skill, right? Except for pull-ups or something. But for any push skill, for any planche, handstand, push-ups, whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't need any equipment for that. Obviously it helps, but nothing is needed. So if you don't start after this video, it's not an I can't thing, it's an I won't thing, most likely. One last thing I want to mention is that since I've started calisthenics, I think I've become a more interesting person to talk to. And I don't think that's an ego thing. I think that's just, I actually have experiences now that I can share with people, you know? I have memories I can share. I have lessons I've learned. I have, you know, workouts I've made. And it's not a terrible thing to talk about. I mean, before that, all I had was video game trivia, you know, movies. I had the occasional sport I did, you know, soccer, basketball, baseball. But none of that was really interesting or that interesting to me, except for soccer. But that was something that I really liked seeing. You know, I actually had things to talk about with friends, family. I had things I did that day. So whenever someone said, "How was your day today?" I didn't just say good. I said, "Awesome. I trained this skill. I did this thing. I persevered, you know. I overcame this challenge at school." Whatever. I was more willing to talk about lessons I've learned and experiences I had, because I actually had experiences, right? Calisthenics was the first thing that actually made me a more productive person, you know? And so it was nice actually having things to talk about with people, because the more I talked about calisthenics with people, the more people tried it. And I have a few friends that do it now, and it's really fun, right? It's nice knowing I made a difference in someone's life, and it's a nice change too. And in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really take too much time, right? I've been doing push-ups for 2 years and calisthenics for 2 years, so 4 years total, which isn't even that much if you think about it, right? 2 years of planche is what, 15 or 16 to 18 years old, which it's not very long, right? You can do that in 2 years. It feels a lot quicker than you think. So I heard this quote, I don't know where it's from, as always, but people often overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. And obviously, I haven't been doing calisthenics for 10 years. I've been doing it for 2. But I think that saying really applies in this, because 4 years ago, I had no idea what calisthenics was. I was not strong at all. As I told you in the beginning, I did 10 push-ups, and that was it, right? So I think I've improved my life mainly for the better over these years. And the beginning of that was really calisthenics. Calisthenics allowed me to dip my foot into the self-improvement space, you know, and since I was making progress in calisthenics, since I finally learned what it was like to fail, to overcome, to succeed, I was more willing to learn all these other good habits, these good improvement habits, and I've felt a really big positive impact in my life, both mentally, physically, and spiritually, since I've been doing a lot of meditation these past few months. So yeah, that's really it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want some cool clothing, as always, head to workoutproject.com, and I'll see you in the next one.